Now we review Alien Earth, Episode 4. Observation. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, in Alien Earth, Episode 4, you have essentially three storylines. You have an A plot, a B plot, and a C plot. Which is which I couldn't even tell you. Maybe you could even say they're all B plots. But you have the story of Wendy and her brother, and essentially this plot line... Yes, Knight? Would you like to be in the video? Knight. You're not Knight. You're Wolf. And you have a cold. Okay, so essentially you have the A plot, the B plot, and the C plot. I'm guessing the A plot is Wendy. She's kind of the main character. As you will recall, she used to be human. Now she's a human intelligence inside a replicant, for lack of a better word. And she's super strong and super agile and stuff. And her brother, she rescued her brother. And her brother's like, stop treating my sis like an experiment. Okay? Alright, so you've got that. Then you've got Moreau, who's the Weyland-Yutani gimp. Looks like that one dude from the first movie. And he is hatching his plan to get his merchandise back. Alright? Then you've got the main research, which in this particular episode is highly focused on the eyeball octopus, which apparently is highly intelligent. But of course, in this episode, we learn that the xenomorphs speak a language. Okay, it's D&D here, and these things, it's not like they have a method of communicating. They have an inherent language, which is, I mean, they're alien creatures, so an inherent language should not be too discounted. There are animals with an inherent language, although that inherent language is essentially very rudimentary. And further along that line is that how exactly the xenomorphs communicate with each other is something we've never understood. In the books, it's a form of telepathy. And yes, humans can have a telepathic link with the aliens, alright? The thing, though, is that Wendy is not a human. It is made very clear that Wendy is a machine. So how this machine has random components to link with... This would be like my cell phone, randomly talking to a gecko. It's very weird. But, I mean, this is not science fiction. This is science fantasy at this point, It's one of the things I don't like about this is it's a little too weird. Like the eyeball-topus. The eyeball-topus, what it does is it infects another creature by, inserting itself in the eye socket of the other creature, then connecting to the brain, alright? And there is a nerve pathway, so this is possible, but, how would its biology even be compatible with a sheep? I guess that's kind of one of the running things in science fiction. It's like in Star Trek. How are all these aliens able to bang one another? Knight, come on. Are you afraid Wolf's going to kick your butt? Nighty-night. Nightness. Anyway. So, yeah, what becomes the bigger problem? The bigger problem with this overall episode is there are a lot of moving parts. And I mean, like, Moreau looks kind of like one of the Lost Boys. I don't remember which one. And apparently he's screwing with Slightly, who's of Indian descent, as in India, for all of you people that don't understand what that means. And, one of those things you have to remember is that these people have families, or had families, because they're machines now, and, those families think they're dead. That was a point that was really hammered home in this episode, is that their families think that they're dead. These people have no one to miss them because, essentially they're not them anymore. They are a computer construct of them, and I'm assuming it's never overtly stated, but the process of intelligence transfer appears to be destructive in nature. Either that, or after these kids had the process done to them, they were killed. Okay? Now, do understand, the Moreau character in general, he's been gone for 60 years. He's been in hypersleep, and he has mechanical components. So, the general idea that they had to kill these kids is now made much darker. And the series itself it's rather light in its coloration. One of the things I very much dislike about this is it lacks the gothic horror elements. The xenomorph, for example, appears much smaller in this episode, or in this series, and it's not the same coloration. It's far shinier. It's brighter. It's not as threatening. And I grant it does some nasty things because it's not a xenomorph. It doesn't behave like a xenomorph. It's a xenomorph in physical appearance only. And we don't get a lot of xenomorph in this episode. We don't get the 4 other creatures so much. We just get the Oedipus and Xeno thingy. And those are the things we have. I'm perfectly cool with the idea that, they bring back scenes from the original movie. But, when you look at the work of the original movie, like the Chestburster, for example, one of the things about it is it popped out white. All right? And if you actually look at the original movie, there are at least a few scenes where, the xenomorph appears more or less translucent. And appearing more or less translucent, it blends in its environment because it kind of reflects whatever color it's around. It appears black to us because it's in the dark. Hence the gothic horror. People are forgetting that Alien and the Alien franchise does not so much have a creature as it has an aesthetic. When you look at the Hive is, of course, an extension of the creature itself. That's what that looks like. They secrete a resin, and then they sculpt that resin into things that they can blend into so that it creates a natural camouflage for them. That's how hives work. So, just one of those facts that we tend to lose is what these creatures are like, the creature biology. Really, one of the things with these long-running series, and one of the bigger problems with them, is that you need a cultural anthropologist, okay? Or perhaps even a team of them. Like Lord of the Rings should have a cultural anthropologist. And this cultural anthropologist should really be looking at, all the media produced, starting with the books, and it's like, that contradicts the book, let me get rid of it. And even Lord of the Rings, it should really have its own linguist, who's an expert in languages. And Star Wars should definitely have its own linguist, who's an expert in languages, and possibly a number of cultural anthropologists, just because of the size of the franchise. Well, Alien is no different. No, we don't need any cultural anthropology, or we don't need any linguists for Alien, because there are no alien-specific languages, but Alien was supposed to be the R-rated Star Wars. And it's one of those things about Alien, is that it's sort of this hodgepodge at this point of conflicting ideas. You know, the first concept of the alien, you know, I mean, you had the eggs, you had the ovomorph is what they're called, you had the face hugger, you had the chest burster, and then you had the adult alien. Well, the second movie added essentially just the queen, all right? The queen was the major addition to that, and this implied that these creatures were, of course, of natural origin. All right, then you've got Prometheus, I think it is, and it's like Prometheus introduces the black goo, and you're like, what the black goo? What's going on? But then you have the books, okay? The books imply that not only are the aliens biological creatures who have a homeworld, but as biological creatures that have a homeworld, you know, there are other animals that they contend with. They're not the apex predator. Okay, so that brings up some certain questions. And then also they're a lot tougher than they're expressed in the movies, because if I had, say, a snub-nosed .38 pistol, okay, which is a common backup weapon used by police officers and security guards, and I shot one at point-blank range. Point-blank range is the point at which a blank round will still strike and injure, or at least I believe that's what... I have never looked it up, but... I mean, a blank is an actual round that just has less powder, and what's in there is different. But a point-blank range is the point where the blank will still strike. If I shot them at point-blank range, so very close, so close enough for this thing to essentially it's kill me or I kill it or it gets me, that .38 should basically flatten on its skin. Those rounds should not penetrate, should not take it down. That's what the books, or at least some of the books, imply. Now, I mean, I haven't read all of the books of Alien, and, I mean, I could put them on my Amazon wish list, but I don't think anyone would buy them for me. So that's just one of those things. So anyway, what you have is a completely different universe from the first two movies, where the creatures behave... I mean, it's like, yeah, all right, we understand that there should be other crazy critters out there in the universe, but it's very much missing from this. Now, what we do have is the big six corporations who essentially took over Earth. They're the new Earth government, okay? In the Alien novels, the Earth government still exists, and I don't know if it's ever overtly stated, but the Marines are U.S. Marines. Like, that's actually what they are. They're an extension, I believe, very strong. I mean, they're government mercenaries, essentially, but... You know, they're... I mean, are they U.S. Marines, or are they some kind of other government entity? I forget. But, you know, it's just one of those things. Where did this come from? This is where the cultural anthropologist would come in and say, no, you can't do that. You know, it's one of those problems, is that nowadays we don't have the same... attention to detail that went... I mean, the first movie, Alien, the Nostromo, was such a character. What they did is they actually took scrap, okay? They took old World War II bombers and derelict military equipment and old TVs in order to make this ship into a true living, breathing entity, a true character in and of itself, all right? So... this wasn't just this sterile spaceship, which would be an aspect of its character, but this was a lived-in space, a world that made sense to you. And this lived-in space with a world that made sense to you, it had its variance and its reality. Okay, well, the creatures in this, they don't have the same level of reality. I mean, it's much like with your Oedipus. You can tell that thing is CGI, all right? There's no possibility anyone is going to mistake that for a real critter. All right? Well, I actually met a man. He was mentally ill, to be fair, but he thought that they really brought dinosaurs back for Jurassic Park. When he looked at Jurassic Park, he thought those were real. They looked real to him. All right? And Jurassic Park, of course, was a mix of CGI and practicals to create a different world. And the CGI was distant shots, and the practicals were close shots. So yes, they had a full-size T-Rex, but they didn't have a full-size Brachiosaur. All right, so yeah. You know, that's one of those things that it's the attention to detail that makes these so real. And I mean, I like the scenes with that fake lung, or the lung that was surgically removed. But then you have to ask the question, why couldn't they just save his lung? Probably because they wanted it for an experiment. But anyway, so yeah, look, Alien, it's getting a lot of buzz. A lot of people are watching it. And we all want to see where this is going. Okay? Gun to my head, you say you're going to watch Alien Earth Episode 4, or you're going to watch Aliens, the film, over again, it's still Aliens all the way. And the two really don't feel as related as they think. Anyway, so that's just my opinion. I mean, well, okay, I'm putting this in the middle to upper middle of your watch list, just above. I mean, it's not a bottom of the watch list. It's certainly, I mean, I was reasonably entertained. I felt it was slow, but I was reasonably entertained. But its significance to the zeitgeist of humanity does give it a boost. So, upper middle of the watch list, not upper part of the watch list. You know, it's worth watching. It's definitely interesting, and it's going to show you imagery that are part of the American zeitgeist in a strong way. But as far as entertainment value, it still falls a little flat. I mean, it's not like it's terrible. It still falls a little flat. Anyway, that's just my opinion. I'd love to hear yours in the comments below. I'm Richard. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Fred the Facehugger, and I'd like to point out that this world isn't a nice place. But you know who's trying to make it a nice place? The owner of this channel, yes. The owner of this channel does things like pay for ocean cleanup, and have trees planted, and even feed orphans in an orphanage in Mexico. Yes, it's a real thing. I'm not kidding. I may be a face-hugging alien from a horror movie, but I'm not a liar. Anyway, when you comment, like, and subscribe, you're supporting that better world, and whereas it may not make a big difference, it may be the difference between one more tree planted, one more pound of trash out of the ocean, or one child not going hungry tonight. So, think about it. Shouldn't you comment? Shouldn't you like? Shouldn't you subscribe? I certainly would if I were you. I'm Fred.